I will be speaking about feminism. And I am standing here to tell you why I reject the monstrosity that has now become feminism, as I no longer recognize what it has become. Feminism has become radicalized, and it has become possibly one of the West's biggest problems. Certainly, it plays a great part in Sweden's current misery. Feminism has, instead of being liberating, become a scourge, an almost militant elitist ideology, a once positive idea gone mad. And it is harming us more than we might think. Amongst other negative attributes, it has created a culture of self-hatred amongst men, rendering them incapable of now standing up and protecting their country when it is most needed. Years ago, the proud lion of Sweden's Nordic battle group coat of arms sported an erect penis. Enraged about this symbol of masculinity, a group of female soldiers lodged a complaint with the European Court of Justice. And Swedish politicians, in their, by then, already feminized ignorance, obligingly removed the offending member. The lion was emasculated, literally castrated. Now, I can't help but compare this emasculation to the state of Sweden today. Sweden's men having now been neutered and feminized and rendered essentially harmless. Dangerously so, and clearly therefore unable to protect Sweden's women and young girls from the most horrific crisis of mass rape in modern times. Feminism is no longer about women's rights. It is a deliberate Marxist feminist machinery set about to bring down the temple of Western civilization. Denmark's Iben Thranholm recently wrote, and it is hard to disagree with her, the deficiency of masculinity in European culture renders it impotent in the face of the political and cultural chaos that has escalated along with growing immigration. And I also fully agree with her when she wrote, the shortage of masculine virtues is the underlying cause of the immigration problems. And in fact, this is what this invasion of mostly Muslim migrants was meant to do. Apologists for Islam claim that Islam has been hijacked by violent extremists. A 10-minute read of any Islamic scripture can show anyone who bothers to look that this is not true. Islamic jihad is central dogma to Islam. In fact, it is feminism that has been hijacked, along with modern Jewish and black rights groups. Hijacked by Marxists who are using the genuine historical inequities in women's rights and black rights, and even the Holocaust, to push a communist agenda. Feminism today is anti-women, as it shills for Islam, just as Soros-funded fake Jewish groups like J Street pretend to be about Jewish rights while working against Israel. And Black Lives Matter work to create hatred between white and black people in America and beyond. Sweden once was outwardly both a people and a country who had a stellar reputation around the world. A people who had created the perfect society of equality and liberty. And it was so, and it was lauded and celebrated across the Western world. A superpower of a sort, not a military superpower, not even an economic superpower with weight to throw around, but a superpower of the sort of which legends are made. The perfect society made of equality, liberty, and economy, where everything went up into a perfect and higher whole. A story a bit like King Arthur's Camelot, a story almost too good to be true, and apparently so it has been. And yet now my sister country, Sweden, has cancer, and it is growing. Its love affair with Marxist hijacked feminism has destroyed a healthy equalitarianism and made it sick with undeserved moral superiority, such that now even Norway has said it will take no Swedish refugees when it finally collapses. That cancer is called feminism, or should I say the cultural Marxism that has infected every level of your society, because it certainly does not bear any resemblance to feminism as it once was or what it was meant to be. As the original feminists, it should anger us all. In its infancy and years after, feminism meant something good. It meant equal rights and elevating women's status in society. Not as it is now, trouncing and squashing other people, whether it be men or women of your own kind, or those of non-Muslims. And oddly, Islam seems to be exempt from the Marxist feminist attacks on our cultures. And why is that? Because modern feminism, like homosexual rights groups, alternative sexual practice advocacy groups, Black people's groups, Jewish groups, and others too numerous to name, are in fact thieves of the moral authority of the groups they pretend to represent. What many of them really are George Soros-funded, culturally Marxist battering rams against classical civilization, meant to use the moral authority we ourselves give to these groups due to past hardships. They use that as weapons against our entire culture, legal system, and organizing principles. This is no less than a war being waged on our very essence. Remember the words of famous Palestinian assassin and convert to Islam, Carlos the Jackal. Only a coalition of Marxism and Islam can defeat the United States, he said. So we can substitute the Western world for the US, and it still holds true. Feminism used to mean standing by your rights as a woman, not emasculating your men and ignoring the plight of your sisters. It means equality, not superiority. It means a collective freedom, not just freedom for some. Once upon a time, strong Scandinavian women, the real feminists, fought long and hard for equality. And we, here in Scandinavia, achieved that equality. The same was true across the world in democracies for various groups that had to fight for equality of opportunity in mainstream society. The American Civil Rights Movement, for example, under Dr. Martin Luther King, a man who today would be called a far-right extremist by the contemporary left. Once we start to understand that all these groups are the ones that are hijacked, and not Islam, which in fact is being true to its historic principles of violent conquest and brutal control of other cultures and peoples. The comfort levels of modern feminist groups and Islam make perfect sense in this context. The same as Black Lives Matter, who never cause problems when there's genuine injustice towards blacks because that would create a better society. They only cause riots when a police officer shoots a black man who might richly have had it coming, because that chaos will destroy our societies, and that very destruction of our societies is their goal. This is no different than feminist groups creating enmity against Swedish natives, while ignoring or minimizing the horrors against women, the mass rapes, the murders of Swedish women by Muslims. Swedish politician Barbro Sarman recently said, "It is far worse when Swedish men rape women than when migrants do it. Because you see, when Swedes rape, they're doing it despite believing in gender equality." And suddenly this makes perfect sense. Modern identity groups are usurpers, thieves of the moral authority of past injustices toward weaker groups in order to weaponize them against real liberals. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not far right-wing. Who knows what that even means any longer? We are those who want the West to prosper. We are the real liberals, like Thomas Jefferson, and the great liberal philosophers of Europe, like John Locke, Voltaire, Kant, and James Mill. Modern feminists are false feminists, pseudo-feminists, I call them, because they have made it abundantly clear that they don't care about what happens to other women. Instead, they are making women targets for Islamic aggression and then blaming the machinery of the most fair state in the history of the world for the results. They are literally the sacrificers of women and the destroyers of women's rights, along with all the rest of ours, if they win. Enter Islam and you have a lethal cocktail. Women all over Sweden are being harassed, groped, and raped at an unprecedented rate by Islamic men who have no cultural respect for women. It has become a horror of normalcy. It barely even runs as news now, and no longer is anyone surprised. Women being raped, stabbed, groped, harassed by Muslims are countered by insane strategies like rubber bracelets in Swedish saying "Tafsa inte," don't grope me. The insanity of this strategy is mind-boggling and about as useful as the German strategy of keeping migrants at arm's length. Actually less useful, as the Muslims for the most part do not read Swedish. But really, if you need a bracelet to tell you not to sexually molest someone, a bracelet is not going to do it, and it is ludicrous to think so. As it turns out, at the most recent music festival where 5 women were raped and 45 were sexually assaulted, some migrant marauders were themselves wearing the Tafsa inte wristbands. We are in the midst of the worst possible situation, the perfect storm. While Marxists disguised as feminists have hounded and vilified, essentially castrated men, the invaders, mostly young Muslim men, have not forgotten their masculinity, and they take, just like any invader, what they want, unimpeded. They see a soft nation of soft men and a soft government that is unwilling to tackle the problem. And we useful idiots, not recognizing the narrative of cultural Marxism using genuine human rights groups as weapons, have served them a smorgasbord of soft femininity. And there is no one left to fight for you or to protect you or your culture and your laws, because you have essentially taken those who could have fought the invaders out of the game. Again, this was no accident. Islam is the main weapon of the Marxists who would tear down our peaceful and cooperative civilization. Islam is the perfect killing machine. And with its unholy alliance with Marxist hijacked feminism, weaponized fake black rights groups, and other mostly fake identity groups, we can now see the edge of the cliff. It is also no accident that leftists demand safe spaces against reason and opinions they do not share, but actively seek to destroy real safe spaces for women, such as a girl's bathroom, locker room, or school shower. Those genuine safe spaces for women have been destroyed by decree in much of the West already, and groups claiming to be feminist groups are partly responsible. Again, this makes perfect sense when you realize the intention was to deconstruct us. I am here to ask you to take off the veil of ignorance and unblind yourselves. I am asking you to stand strong on Swedish values and culture and to guard them with your life, to fight for them. And I am asking you to reject the false feminist narrative with their lies and manipulations, and to take back your pride in your respective genders and to celebrate those differences. Because men and women are different. We have different strengths and abilities, and they are both equally important and equally needed, equally valid, especially now. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to make choices, and these choices will have consequences. Not just for ourselves, but for our children and the conditions under which we as a people continue to exist. the kinds of choices for which our ancestors have fought bloody wars, existential choices. This conflict is moving into a new phase, and we had better all be prepared to do our part, whatever that part may be. Ladies and gentlemen, the madness needs to stop, because a war is being waged against us, and we had best recognize this. And don't take my word for any of this. Get curious. Read about cultural Marxism, and read about the left's agenda at deconstructing our societies, destroying our cultures and our values. The information is easy to find. All of our futures depend on this. And especially, your destructive government is pushing this destructive agenda, so it's even more important for you Swedes to get wise. If our cultures and peoples are to survive, it is time to wake up. Thank you very much for your time.